Hi everyone, Jessica Morales here, joined now by Mark Whitley, who's the founder and CEO of Chisholm Energy Holdings. Thank you for joining us, Mark.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. We want to start off by talking to you recently about how you expanded your position in the Delaware Basin with an acreage acquisition in Eddy County, New Mexico. What did you see in that undeveloped asset, I guess, that was interesting for y'all?
The Delaware Basin, and particularly in New Mexico, is the newest portion really of the Permian Basin. But it is a very active basin that goes back many, many years. So some of the earliest discoveries were in the Delaware Basin. Hence, there are thousands of wells, vertical wells, that we can go to and take log data and in some cases core data out of libraries and do analyses of our own to see really what is there. So this additional acreage that we bought was in an area where there are hundreds of wells drilled to the Morrow. And the Morrow is deeper than the Wolfcamp and the Bone Spring, which are the two primary targets in the Delaware Basin. So we had technical data that told us that there is hydrocarbon there. There's hydrocarbon in the second and third Bone Spring, most likely. There's hydrocarbon in the top of the Wolfcamp, in the middle Wolfcamp, and possibly even in the base of the Wolfcamp. So we've already answered one question, and the opportunity came to us in a private deal. The company could have taken it as a public process. They didn't want to. So we were able to work out a deal that worked for both of us, and it allowed us to put together a position now in which we can begin to craft together drilling spacing units that will be 7,500 up to 10,000 foot in length.
Do you have any thoughts or plans for further expansion in the Delaware?
We do. We started out with kind of a target, informal target, if you will, of 30,000 acres. We've already reached that. We have over 30,000 acres. I still think there's a good opportunity here with some small acquisitions that we could get to 40, possibly even before the end of the year. And down the road, maybe as far as 50,000 acres. So I would say today our target has shifted from 30,000 to 50,000.
Great. If we can shift to production, talking about production, the name of the game, increasing output, of course, while controlling cost. What have you found really to be the keys to maintaining the balance there? It is about
cost control. And many of the cases, the assets that we use, so drilling rigs, frac fleets, et cetera, are the same that everyone else uses, but it's a question about how do you use them. So the team, because they've operated together for so long, and in some cases as much as 20 years together, they have a really good operating practice concept that they use, which gives us the ability to do things both the right way, but also in a cost-effective way. And you hear a lot of companies talk about that, but if you look at the team and their previous experience, they've had some of the lowest cost per foot in the basins, and particularly Pennsylvania. And so we're going to replicate that in the Delaware Basin.
What type of completions really do you find work best for you on the Delaware position?
So if you look at the Delaware, first of all, it's made up of conventional rock. So the Bone Spring is a sandstone. The Wolfcamp primarily is shale with a conventional reservoir at the top that's sandstone. So we have adopted a standard frac job. Now it's kind of not what everybody talks about today in pumping more sand, but we take the standpoint that in order to be able to evaluate all these and really see what is making the difference in these wells, because it's not just the amount of sand that you pump, it's how you pump it and where you pump it. And so targeting, landing the horizontals in the right target, making sure you stay in that target. To remove one of those variables, we use this standard frac job, 1,500 pounds per foot, 210 foot stages with 30 foot clusters in those stages, and about 4,000 barrels of water per stage.
And do you see the industry being able to get more output out to the Permian market? If you could share your thoughts with us on that. If anyone should be worried about industry watchers warning against any of that?
If you're talking about from a gathering and transportation standpoint, Obviously, New Mexico is behind all of the rest of the Permian Basin just because of the slow uptake in activity over the last several years, but that's coming. We have a midstream provider that is going to actually gather oil, gas, and water for us. Three Bear Energy is the company, and it's a novel water solution for us because now we won't have to truck any water or very, very little water. It'll actually be moved on pipes from the location to their impoundments, where it'll be stored until we need it, and then they send it back to us in a pipe. So all these volumes now will move on pipe, not in a truck. And the cost saving from both a capital standpoint and an operating standpoint is in the $2 to $3 a barrel range. And we produce 15,000 barrels of water a day already.
Wow. And I heard you mention earlier when discussing technology and big data, humans really being the team factor there. Can you talk to us a little bit about how Chisholm Inputs, uses that data as well? Yeah, so the concept, of course, of big data is really the purview of the major companies, the big companies. It's really difficult for us to get staffed up to do something like that, but we use a great deal of data. It's just handled in maybe a less programmatic way and in a more of a human way. So we have a staff of experienced reservoir engineers and geologists who work together to evaluate log data, landing data, reservoir data, performance data. So we may not be on the same playing field, but we definitely understand the importance of data. And can you talk to us about any challenges you see, in the area, in your position, and how you all work through that?
One of the bigger, or several challenges, is logistically moving anything in trucks. So early on, understanding that, we decided to get an answer to that as quickly as possible. Big portion of that is moving water, but also moving crude oil. And trucks in New Mexico are going to move crude oil first and water second. So we have moved very quickly to get this partnership in place with Three Bears so that we can move both on pipe, and that is going to help make the life of our operations people significantly less complicated and safer. Moving anything by truck just raises the specter of accidents, and if we're moving 100% of our fluids on pipe, that is largely mitigated.
And those are infrastructure concerns, I guess, as well. Does that play into that?
It is. It all fits together. So the infrastructure of gathering oil and gas, obviously, they go together. The infrastructure of moving things like water and sand, they go together. We've decided not to get into the sand sourcing business. That's just another level of complexity that we're really not staffed to do that. We could be, but maybe somewhere down the road. One thing, having been involved in the business now for 42 years, is you learn never say never. What we thought was impossible many years ago is now just taken for granted.
And with, of course, your experience and seeing now how maybe people are more optimistic, can you talk to us about the positive side of what you're seeing in your position and what Chisholm is excited about? Yeah, so the great thing is the fact that we have only had this asset in hand a little over a year, and how far we have come already. In testing both in the Bone Spring and the Wolfcamp, had early success, which has driven our desire to add to our footprint. And it's based on, you have two assets. One is above ground, that's the people that we have. We have a great team, they work very well together. And then we bought a good underground asset, which we can now turn into a very significant company based on both the Bone Spring and the Wolfcamp. Looking at the positives there. Well, thank you, Mark. We appreciate your time.
It's great to be with you, Jessica.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for Heart Energy, I'm Jessica Morales.
To stay up to date on the most recent Heart Energy videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking here.